Hey you guys, welcome back again to Rebuild Reality, where as always we talk about who we really are, why we're here, and how all of this 3D stuff actually really works. I am your host, Guy Cheyenne, and I have a success story, a really beautiful success story today from a client who actually asked me to share this because they had been in this situation for I think about 8 or 9 months where they had been trying to get their SP back, trying to change that whole situation. And they were like, if I had known like the things that I know now, he's like, I wish I would have known those things. Because he's like, I spent so much time going through so many videos and doing so many techniques and processes. And he said, he's like, I felt like I really evolved, like I really finally understood it, and I was following what had worked for other people as well. So he's like, I just don't understand why it's not working for me. So we talked for a while, and I found out that he was still seeing his ex as who she was, as I need to fix that version of her, and I need to somehow convince that version of her as she was to come back to me. So I'm like, well, you could do it that kind of approach, and maybe it would happen, but then you would still be getting that version where there was issues between the two of you. So I'm like, if we look at this closely, there is no past because there is no time. So I'm like, why would you have a version of her that you need to fix, that you need to convince, in your mind that you still need to be good enough for, that you still need to have these conversations with, of resolving things from the past, because he still had like a lot of kind of ongoing issues with her. He's like, I totally love her, but he felt like he really needed her to apologize for a few things. He's like, if she just would admit it, he's like, I would totally forgive her, if she would just admit that that was not right, that she did those things, and then we could move on. I'm like, well, then you're kind of starting from that place where you're beginning your relationship again, and there's still problems, there's still issues. And if, you could do it, like I said, you could do it that way, where you are now, it was that way, and now you're going into, they've come back, and now you're, starting off from that foot. But I'm like, do you really want to? Do you really want to start off with the version of her that was that same person, that still had those issues, that still has something that they did that they need to apologize for? Or would you rather have the version of them that nothing ever happened, that they would even need to apologize for, that those things never happened? Because if there's no time, then, in reality, of course, there is no past. These images are just images that the mind is choosing out of infinite images it could choose and saying, that's your past. Or it could just as easily, present another past for you. And since we don't really know, when things change, we have no idea if that's even our past or not, because, well, there's no time. So your mind is presenting stories to you, and it's like you can either accept that and, take your creation from that point forward, or you can be like, no, they've always loved me. They've always been attracted to me. They've always been nice to me. They've always been super generous and kind and loving, towards me. I've always been the one for them. They've always known, and they've always treated me as if I was the one. I was the love of their life. So I'm like, well, what feels better to you? And he's like, well, that definitely feels better, to me. To go ahead and view it from that angle. So I'm like, well, it's going to be easier for you if you don't have something to hold on to, because that version of you, you can say it existed. You could say that that version of your relationship existed, or you can go in and change it. And it can be absolutely anything that you want. So he's like, okay, that feels much better. I really love how that feels. So, he went off, and then we had another scheduled time together about a week later. So he comes back, and we're talking. And I'm like, well, how's it going? And he's like, well, I feel really better about the things that you've told me. He's like, but still, he's like, it's put me in a better place mentally. But still, I feel like I'm still trying to get things right, to make sure that I'm doing things right. And I'm like, for who? He's like, well, who's ever out there that I need to get it right for, that I need to please. And I'm like, well, he's like, he looks at me, and he takes one look at me, and he's like, there's nobody out there, is there? And I'm like, no, just like, you've seen on my videos, there's nothing out there. So there's nobody out there, which means that there's nothing in your way, that absolutely nothing can stop you. So you don't have to be good enough for anybody or anything. You don't have to get anything right. You don't have to do anything, where you're being involved, because all you have to do is just decide the version you want out of, I've spoken about it before, where you can think of it as this massive, vault of movies, and you get to choose any movie, any one that you want, with any storyline you want. And it's all there. The good, the bad, the ugly, no judgment. It's there. If you want to experience it, you can experience it. But of course, I think that most of us would agree we'd like to go with the best possible version. And certainly all that we are wants that for us. Because that's why we have that urge in the first place to experience that, because all of us, the rest of us, wants to experience the best possible thing, like the greatest story ever told. I mean, why not? Why not? That's what it would, there's no judgment, and it's not going to say anything, obviously, if we want to experience something that's difficult, because everything teaches us something. So nothing is viewed as good or bad. But wouldn't you like it to be the best possible, most amazing story ever? Well, of course, I'm pretty sure that most of you would probably agree with that. So he's like, you're right. In the back of my mind, I still have this feeling, that I'm still trying to please somebody, or, something out there, or to try and still get something right, to still be worthy, be good enough for it, He's like, that is like really kind of stuck in my head, that I need to do things right, that I need to be good enough. And I'm like, well, if there's nobody there, then, not only is there there's nothing out there with any kind of criteria that you have to meet, but there's no opposition. There's nothing going against you but you. It's just us. It's just that overactive mind that is so sure that there is a past that we have to overcome, and a future that we have to strive for and overcome obstacles in order to finally get, the wonderful things, and da-da-da, I won, oh my God, I did it type thing. Is like, well, it's just a story, isn't it? There's no, nothing out there opposing you or trying to stop you. So he went off, and he was like, he told me, he's like, that is a massive relief for me. He's like, I don't know, how, I thought that there was, but that he's like, if I'd actually looked closely at it, he's like, I would have realized that, what am I thinking? What am I even thinking about that when I'm going throughout my day and I'm just imagining these things? So we decided to speak 2 weeks later, because he said he wanted to give it some time and stuff. So, but when he contacted me at our next appointment, he said he could hardly wait to speak to me. He said he almost booked like an appointment before then because he was so excited to talk to me. He's like, but I made it. And he said that he's like, the most extraordinary thing happened. He had actually had to go away for his work. And when he came back, he said that same day, he said he came back like in the afternoon. And then he said later in the afternoon, he said it was like early evening, and he said he got a knock on his door. And so he's like, I wasn't expecting anybody, So we opened the door and there she was. But he said that she was standing back, about 30 feet. And she had a big bunch of flowers in her hands. Like he said, it was like a huge bunch of flowers, mixed flowers and stuff. And I'm like, well, what happened? He's like, she just looked at me. She just looked at me with these eyes where she looked like she was almost crying. And I just looked at her, and there was just this moment, where he's like, we both just knew that we were meant to be together, And he's like, she didn't even say anything. I didn't even say anything. And next thing I knew, she was in my arms. And he's like, the rest is history. And I'm like, wow, that is beautiful. That is amazing. And he's like, what ended up happening is she was just like, the reason that because they had this huge argument and stuff, and that's why they had broken up and stuff. And it was like, she's like, as if they'd never had an argument. She was like, oh, the reason I ended up having to leave was because I had all these issues going on, and I just didn't feel like I could really measure up to what you needed and stuff. And he's like, what? She was the one telling me that I had problems and stuff. And now she was apologizing to me, saying that she knew that she had issues and all this stuff going on, And he's like, I never even would have had to have even brought anything up from the past story, because the way that she was just, he's like, it was just so beautiful, and she was just apologizing for the way she had been. But it was like we'd never had any arguments at all, because she never even spoke about those. They were just gone. So obviously he was thrilled, and he's like, just like right then they were like in each other's arms and looking at each other and kissing each other. And it was just like, he said it was so powerful. It was like, oh my God, I love you, I love you, I love you. And they were both like, I love you, I love you, I love you, And I never want to be apart from you. And he said it was just like some kind of movie, some kind of beautiful movie, just as he had hoped it would be, come to life. So yeah, I'm so happy with him, that he got his fairy tale. Because he said that he had been kind of thinking like of how wonderful it would be to be like a fairy tale, which I think is so beautiful. And he said once he realized, he's like, there is nothing opposing me, and I can make up anything I want, and there's nothing to stop that. There's literally nothing out there that can stop you from having absolutely anything that you want. He's like, I think that was like the last key that really opened the door, because he's like, I felt like it was just this struggle and that there was something to overcome. And he's like, it was just me. So I hope that you guys enjoyed that. And I'm really glad that he let me share that story with him. And thank you guys for being here once again. And if you guys need help, you know where to find me. There's a link below in the description, but hopefully these things can help you enough where you're good on your own. And yeah, thank you for being here with me once again on Rebuild Reality. Thank you for liking, subscribing, sharing, doing all that stuff, and being a part of this channel. I appreciate you guys. Anyway, mwah, I'm going to see you guys here next time on Rebuild Reality.